One. Hey everybody, welcome to Kingdom of Honor. This is your host, Zanman Shane Sabunia, and my good buddy Jeff is right along with me. And I'm going to start off with something I don't normally start off with, Jeff, and that I'm just going to ask you a question.
Please
Did you
don't.
did you get a chance to watch The Dark Side of the Ring?
No, I didn't.
Because I don't know if you
No,
know, but it was about the Chris Benoit tragedy.
Yeah, and it's on my list. I just haven't gotten a chance to it yet.
The reason I ask is because I had a much different reaction to it, I think, than a lot of other people did. You and I covered Chris Benoit for about an hour, maybe a little bit longer, on I think it was our very first episode of our Desert Island series, Racked with
Right.
Wrestlers. And you and I had both kind of been, of the opinion that, we can love the art even if we hate the artist.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of people out there that just, wouldn't watch a Chris Benoit match, and you and I would still watch the matches. We just would think, we would just focus on the artist doing the work and the art rather than on the man behind it. And the Tales I almost said Tales from the Dark Side, but it might as well be called that, Tales from the Dark Side of the Ring. But anyway, the Dark Side of the Ring, these this 2-part episode or 2-hour episode, it was originally filmed to be a 2-hour show, and it was actually ended up split up by the network into 2 parts, which are both available on YouTube now for free. Tonight's episode is The Life and Crimes of New Jack, which I'm also looking forward to watching. But for me, for a lot of people, watching this was kind of cathartic. Like, now I kind of see, the man behind it, and I see what may have led to it. And now maybe these folks can go in and watch a Chris Benoit match and even be able to enjoy it or appreciate it. For me, it was a complete kick to the gut, man. I mean, watching this thing, I was getting physically ill. I was kind of like going into dark places in my head. I watched the first part, and then I was like, I don't even know if I want to watch the second part. But I did. I struggled my way through it. It was brutal. And now I kind of had that role reversal, and now I'm not sure I ever want to watch a Chris Benoit match again. It was that moving and that deeply affecting for me.
See, and maybe it's because I haven't seen it. I still have this, like, you have to put some blame on Chris Benoit because of what he did. I can't imagine there's so many other wrestlers out there that don't do that thing, that don't go to those lengths. But at the same time, how much of it was because of, all the steroids and the concussions and the trauma to his head and, things like that. So I guess I'll have to see it and form my own opinion. But I'm still under the guise of enjoying the artist, or enjoying the art, not the artist.
Yeah, and I totally get that, and a lot of it wasn't simply his act. It was like, and what he did to his family. Although that was obviously nasty and brutal and terrible, and one of the worst things you could ever do is to kill your own wife and your own child. But a lot of it was just the effect it had on other people. Like, looking at seeing how Dean Malenko is now, how it affected him, how it affected Chris Jericho, how it affected Chavo Guerrero, how it affected Vicky Guerrero, how it affected David Benoit, his oldest son.
Right.
And just hearing what David's gone through with people on Twitter, and if you did this, I don't care if you listen to my show or not, you're a complete fucking asshole, dick bag of a human being that needs to be strung up. People harassing David Benoit on Twitter for what his dad did. I mean, come on, that's just ridiculous.
See, and I get that. I get people like Malenko and Vicky and Eddie and Chris Jericho, who were great friends with Benoit, having mixed emotions and genuinely being hurt and upset. But for anybody to harass any of these people involved, like David, should just be strung up. Plain and simple. That's uncalled for. You're ruining a kid because of something that someone else did.
Exactly. And David had this platform, and they asked him, what would you say to these people? And he didn't say Like I said, you guys are a bunch of dick bags, or you should be strung up, or fuck you, or anything like that. All he said was, please stop. And that's the kind of good guy this man is. I wish David nothing but the best in his life. But as far as this show and I told Melissa about it. She's like, wow, cool. I got to watch that this week. And I said, well, I'm not watching it with you. I don't think I can ever watch this show again. It was that dark and moving and affecting to me, and it put me in a bad mood for about a day and a half. So, um, so I think any wrestling fan should watch it, especially someone who was a fan of Chris Benoit and who was a fan of wrestling during that era. But it's not something I could ever watch again.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to skip it. Simply because I have my own version of Benoit formed, and I don't, as interesting as it would be to hear stories of people going through, we have enough crap going on in this world right now. And part of that will come up later when we discuss the WrestleTalk show, but it's just, I don't want to have any more negativity right now. I just want to, at this point, I want to focus on my kid, my job, and things that I enjoy.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that earlier today too. It's a weird time to be a pro wrestling fan, right? I mean, you and I always talk about how this is a great time to be a pro wrestling fan because of all the organizations out there, all the access there is to it, the streaming services, the affordability of the ticket prices for some of these big promotions, all the touring that's going on. You can pretty much go anywhere. New Japan is coming to the United States now, which is just amazing. But also, like right now, it's weird to watch wrestling the way it is right now, and Impact has 5 more episodes in the can, so I mean we can still watch Impact and see a regular pro wrestling show. Ring of Honor is doing some compilation shows and also showing some matches they never shown before. They're doing some hidden gem type stuff on there. We know what AEW is doing. We know what WWE is doing. I'm really excited to see WrestleMania this weekend because I want to see what it looks like with this mixture of cinematic style matches and what they do with it. I think it's going to be unique. But also, I thought about the fact that for months I wanted to watch these Dark Sides of the Rings that I missed, or the Wrestlers episodes that I missed, and they were only pay to play on YouTube. And now you can still buy them on YouTube, but they're actually available right now to watch every episode of both of those Viceland series. But with all the dark stuff going on right now, I'm like, is this really the right time for this show to be coming back on? Even though it's a great show, it's in depth, it's well produced, but like you said, I don't know that I need any more darkness right now when it feels like the whole world is caving in, kind of.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of people that, and I know why they're doing it, because people are starved for entertainment. I'm not personally in a place where I want to put myself through that. I especially don't want to have anything sour my mood on somebody that I enjoy, and I've never stopped enjoying Chris Benoit matches. So
yeah, if I were you, at least I do not think I could recommend this to a person who's still a fan of Chris Benoit.
Yeah, then I won't be watching it. Period.
Yeah,
won't happen.
I don't blame you at all. So let's move on to the show that. Well, do you want to move on to MLW first?
I want to get the MLW out of the way, to be honest. And I'm trying to look up results for it, but basically the whole reason Shane and I were huge fans of MLW for pretty much all of last year.
Yeah.
Until AEW and NWA started up and really started pilfering their talent.
Including Ring of Honor, they're talent too, to be fair.
Oh yeah, yep. Ring of Honor too. They took Roosh. They took PCO.
We were finally going to get Roosh against LA Park, which they tried to do in CMLL and it didn't work because of contracts. They tried to do it in MLW, and then Roosh got signed right out from underneath him, and it's just like I guess this match is just not destined to ever happen.
I think the final blow for me was the departure of Callahan, and then shortly after that, Jim Cornette. Because I think Cornette was such a driving force to their creative that his departure really, really kind of turned it down. And it's sad because there's still guys in the promotion I really like. Myron Reed is still one of my favorites. I love Alex Hammerstone. I think these guys are incredibly talented, but as much as we liked them a year and a half ago, it was a struggle to watch these two shows. The first one was good. The ending really, really kind of sucked, because there's nothing I hate more than a dream match ending that way. That second night, that second show was just god-awful from start to finish. There was nothing about that second one I liked, and that includes the 8-man match.
You know, I totally agree with you about the first one. You know, the first show was pretty darn good from start to finish. Although, you know, the start of it really kind of soured my stomach because it felt like because one reason you know, what was really got me is, like you said, Jim Cornette leaving, Sami Callihan leaving, but also that it started to feel like I was watching the same show over and over again.
Yep.
Because it would always start with injustice in a match, and then the next thing was always the Hart Foundation against the Dynasty, you know, and then we'd have something involving, you know, either Tom Lawler or Low Key or I can't remember even the stable anymore, but
Country.
No,
Oh,
stable.
Prociones de Laredo.
Yeah, Prociones de Laredo. Or we would have, now I just lost, or Tom Lawler out there, or the Von Erichs. You know, I mean, it was always
Contra unit doing another promo.
Yeah, so I mean, it just felt like the same show over and over. And that show starting off with Myron Reed in a match was like, are you kidding me? You guys have not evolved from that, even though he's the middleweight champion.
But that was a hell of a match.
It was.
That was
a really good match. Yeah.
You know, and even the Mance Warner match, which I'm a fan of his character, but I see where his character gets stale. And I feel like we're still watching the same character we saw 6 months ago. I don't feel like there's been any evolving in Mance Warner's character. And then to have the match that he had, which was just kind of whatever.
Yeah, I'm so good. I agree. I guess that his character hasn't evolved, but I still do enjoy him, and maybe just, you know, because I haven't seen him in 3 months, it's, you know, I was able to put that aside, and that's why I did enjoy in that second episode. I did enjoy his segment, even though it involved the Blue Meanie in it.
Yeah, and I mean his site it was entertaining, and Richard Holiday's an entertaining guy too, and then Blue Meanie.
That's what I was going to say. Is Richard Holiday also is going to, you know, he definitely keeps my interest too. And
he's kind of taken a leap forward in that MJF role. So his character in 3 months has really evolved. I don't know who this guy, if member of the Dynasty, some guy that they just brought in, made no sense. Him being undefeated and then losing to Mance Warner, I not really sure that was a great call, but I mean, I kind of get it, I guess. I wasn't impressed with that match. And then there was a Contra segment, which they really, I don't know if it was mistiming on the announcer's part or if it was planned that way or what, but for Rich Bocchini to say, oh, later on we're going to have a video from Contra. Well, guys, you only got 15 minutes left of the show. It's going to come next. Oh yeah, there's Contra's music.
And also, like, since when does Contra announce that they're going to do a video?
Right, they just cut into the broadcast. You know, that whole segment just felt weird, and the fact that he was, well, later on tonight we're gonna get a segment from Contra. It's like, come on, guys, we have the main event. MLW never ends on a segment. Let's really, and then Contra's music plays. So that was a little disheartening. And then the match that I was looking forward to started out to be a hell of a match, but why do you end a dream match in that way, especially when one of the guys you don't need to protect?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, unless that was part of the deal, is that, you know, Killer Kross was already booked, but WWE didn't, you know, was insisting on him not losing, something like that. The only reason I can ever see that, you know, I can see why that would happen.
That was just a bad decision all around. And
then in the second episode,
that was just garbage from start to finish.
Well, the second episode, you know, I have to say that, you know, that might have been, there was a segment on here that might have been the worst wrestle crap thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, the cooking segment?
Yeah, the cooking segment with the huevos and sausage.
The only
What
thing,
the hell?
the only part of that entire segment I liked was when LA Park started bitching about the fact that MLW couldn't pony up for spices.
Yeah, but it took way too long to get there, man.
And it was in Spanish, so it's not like, I mean, by the time it got to that, I was already out. So I wasn't really reading the subtitles anymore. And then all of a sudden a word caught me and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. I started reading again. But yeah, that was, could that be the worst segment of all time in wrestling history?
It's got my vote, brother.
I'm trying to think.
I mean, it's even worse than Choppy Choppy Yo Pee Pee. It really is.
No,
it's terrible.
You're right. It is. Val Venus, you just got bumped out of the bottom spot because that was bad. That was really bad television.
Really, probably the two worst in history were probably Choppy Choppy My Pee Pee and then Bart getting his ass kicked in the Brawl for All, right?
Yeah, but Bart legitimately got his ass kicked. That wasn't a produced segment. There wasn't any creative behind that. That was Bart. Crap. That was Bart getting his ass legitimately kicked by a real boxer.
Yeah, I know that, but still,
I mean, we're right now, as far as the worst segments in wrestling history, there is this one, which could be the worst ever. There is Choppy Choppy Pee Pee, and there is the introduction of the Stormtrooper. Yeah.
Yeah.
In his glittered Stormtrooper mask.
There's also Brooke Hogan's horrible acting at her wedding, but I suppose that...
Oh, yeah. But all wedding segments, that's just a given. Has there ever been a good wedding segment ever in wrestling? Probably the best would have been Test and Stephanie.
Test and Stephanie or Triple H and Stephanie?
Test and Stephanie. The way that Triple H cut in and revealed that he had married Stephanie.
Yeah, that was great.
Outside of that one, I can't think of another, because I don't know, Stephanie getting pedigreed into a cake wasn't that interesting, and I don't know, most wrestling weddings are awful, but that one might have been the only good segment I've ever seen on a wrestling wedding.
Yeah. I guess not good, but another interesting one was the Billy and Chuck commitment ceremony.
Yeah, that was fun. I guess that was. Wait, we're not. No.
This has gone way too far.
All right, that was entertaining too. But there was something about a passed out Stephanie with Triple H being a puppet master at a drive-through marriage ceremony that still piques my interest. I can still watch that over and over again and laugh every time.
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately these episodes, did fall flat for me. But I'm still not with you on Mance Warner. I still think he's great. I
think he's talented in the ring, but I think he's a Jimmy Havoc-ish type guy to me, where and like Sammy was a couple of years ago, where I don't know that I've seen a wrestling match from Mance Warner. When I started to see wrestling matches out of Sammy, when I started to see him out of Jon Moxley, when I started to see him out of Jimmy Havoc, I appreciated what their hardcore style was a lot more. I haven't seen that out of Mance yet. Even his wrestling matches seem to be a little bit too hardcore for me.
Yeah, I guess we saw this one. This week was a pretty straight wrestling match, and I remember him having one against Alexander Hammerstone too.
'Cause for me right now, Mance Warner is the same guy that I saw 3, 4, 5 months ago, where there's no character growth. It's still all about his light beers and the pay window. And then he has hardcore matches. There's nothing outside of that. Like his promos aren't compelling. You're not hanging on his words to find out what he's going to say next. You already know what he's going to say next. It's something about a knee pad. It's something about a thumbs up. It's something about a light beer and going to the pay window. Something that was, he had such an entertaining shtick in the beginning that really got old, and it stayed old.
I guess
That's just my opinion. You know, I there's going to be fans like we said. That was one thing on the WrestleTalk show that they said too, is wrestling is subjective. You know, I'm like, hey, we say that all the time. You know, it's true. There's going to be people that like him. It's just, for me, his character, his matches, nothing with him is really sticking. And if he's going to be the focal point going forward, it's not. I don't know. It's not really, because in 2 episodes, clearly he is the focal point of the show. Jacob Fatu, Contra Unit, they weren't around. Alex Hammerstone had a bit piece in one segment, one backstage segment, and that was it. You know, and those are probably the only other guys on that roster that I could see building the roster around. Davey Boy Smith, as much as talented as he is, and he's not a good talker. He proved that twice in 2 nights. You know, he had a chance at 2 promos and he fumbled over his words in both of them. You know, Tom Lawler is just never been that. He had a stretch right before he won the world title where I felt like he was on top of his game, but he's still not. He's still relying too much on his MMA background and not just his own personality. So, I mean, if you look at the guys to build around, you've really got 2 or 3, and 2 of them weren't even on the shows. 2 straight shows, they weren't even on them.
Yeah, that's very true. But I really do like Richard Holiday. I think he's growing in. I think he's really growing into his own. I love his character. I think he's a strong wrestler. He's got great comedic timing. I think he really could be a star at some point. You know,
well, I agree 100%. He really fills in that MJF role that's been vacated. He is definitely the leader of the dynasty, and he really fills into that role. And his my lawyer / father gimmick is I still chuckle. You know, it's still one that I really like.
Do you think they're ever going to have a payoff for that? I mean, do you think they're going to have him show up at some point and end up being like somebody famous or something?
If they're smart, if they figure out how to long-term book, then yeah.
Is Mike Rotundo still alive? Because he'd be perfect for that role.
You know, and Holiday kind of looks like him.
That's what
I could definitely see him as a brother to Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt.
Yeah,
because he does have that look to him.
He does. You know, he kind of looks like an older version of IRS to me. I mean, he's definitely got, you know, the body style of Randy Orton too, but or even I can't even think of his name right now. But anyway.
Yeah, he is tall and lanky, but not skinny like Orton was.
Right.
Like Orton, I think at one point in his career had 0% body fat.
I think so too.
At least when you looked at him, I've never seen any man, even Luger, chiseled that well.
Yeah. And it was nice to see that Brian Prickman is a two-time Rookie of the Year winner now. So
what the fuck? I literally lost all respect for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Literally.
Well, it's fans that voted for it, man.
But I'm watching. How are there that many fans of Pro Wrestling Illustrated that even know who Brian Pillman Jr. is? To know what the gimmick is with him and MLW.
Best guess is they saw his name.
They barely hit 100,000 viewers this last couple of weeks. So how are there that many people out there that even know that Brian Pillman Jr. exists to vote him as Rookie of the Year 2 years in a row?
And it's so weird considering that you know, AEW has this monster presence on national TV for the last, well, I guess on national TV only since October, but I mean, you know, they had the announcement in January, they had those specials, and you know, you had people like Sonny Kiss and Nyla Rose and Darby Allin, you know, that are maybe are not technically rookies, but are rookies to the national scene.
But would they be
would have gotten those kind of votes, you know?
Would they have been considered? I guess it depends on who they threw out there for Rookie of the Year. But
even Jungle Boy, brother, even Jungle Boy, you think would get more votes than Brian Pillman?
Now that I think about it, Jungle Boy, this is only his second year in the ring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Darby's only been around 3 years. You know, so these are guys that would have won it. Not, it's just it screamed to me like that Pro Wrestling Illustrated, how could they buy into an MLW gimmick? And I could understand if this was
because they're the one organization that's going to give any credibility.
fair enough. But if you think about it, if this had been a WWE gimmick, let's say they had, and I can't even think of who would be arrogant enough, but you look at the guy from oh shit, he wrestled on last night's Raw. He was in that one-off promotion Evolve that we were watching for a while. Austin Theory. Like Austin Theory, that kind of thing would fit his gimmick perfectly.
He could have been Rookie of the Year. He's only been wrestling for 2 years.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And that would have fit his gimmick perfectly, where he could have been in the running for, Rookie of the Year again next year. And he could have, found some way, some loophole or something. But Brian Pillman Jr., that to me, that was just, it was a payoff to a gimmick that doesn't exist anymore because the Hart Foundation doesn't exist anymore. And Pillman Jr. is not that, he's still a prick, but he's being a prick as a babyface. So he's not that arrogant heel gimmick anymore. It doesn't fit his character. It doesn't fit anything. And I lost all respect for Pro Wrestling Illustrated because of that.
Right. And I really hope that this isn't something like going forward for the next, year where it's the reigning and 2-time Rookie of the Year. I'm sure it's going to be, but I think it's a really bad look and a really bad gimmick, honestly. For a guy that I think is a prick anyway.
When he originally said that last year, it kind of made sense because it fit his cocky gimmick because he had just turned on Conan and he had just turned on somebody else. There was another old school wrestler that he turned on that knew his dad. I can't remember the name, but he just turned on a couple of guys. He had just turned joined the Hart Foundation. He was on fire with his gimmick and everything, and it made sense last year, but it's probably something that should have been forgotten and just let run away.
I thought of one more name that could have easily won this over Brian Pillman, and that's Flamita.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, there's a few.
And Bandito should have won it last year over him for damn sure.
Well, that's why I'm losing respect for Pro Wrestling Illustrated to even put their name behind this. If it had been MLW's Rookie of the Year, that would have been one thing. But for it to be PWI's Rookie of the Year, all right, guys, I don't believe anything you say anymore. Sorry, it's just the way it is.
I don't blame you. Should we move on?
Do you want to talk about that 8-man match?
No.
Okay. I thought.
What the hell is there to talk about?
I thought Lawler cut an interesting.
Actually, you know what I'll say about that match is it was not what I wanted it to be.
No, it wasn't.
I wanted it. It started off with it being a 4-on-4 brawl all over the arena, and that's what I wanted the whole thing to be.
And it should have stayed that way.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be an actual wrestling match. In fact, I thought about this like when the show was starting. I was like, this thing should be. These guys are fighting all over the arena the entire time. The bell should never actually ring. And if they had done that, I think I would have enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than just watching Rip Von Erich, get first of all doing one of those lame female style low blows, to
right?
Davey Boy Smith Jr. But then him being the one guy, not even a guy that to me seems like a real wrestler to me, is the one gets punked out by the Von Erichs and Killer Kross.
There was so much wrong with this. And that's kind of what I mentioned in the opening, and the only reason I wanna talk about it is because there was just so much wrong, and hopefully MLW, you're listening and you can learn from your mistake. But Lawler was in the middle of a great heel promo. I'm not going to deny it. He was in the middle of delivering a great heel promo to start the match, and then the crowd started chanting using explicit language. And he went straight from heel to babyface saying, hey, guys, there's kids in the audience. And then he ended the interview. He ended the promo right there. And it's like, wait, what just happened?
You thought that was a babyface move? Because I thought it was kind of like he was kind of like showing the crowd what pricks they really are by by saying something like that.
If he had gone on
He was, yeah.
in my eyes, if he had gone on a little bit more chastising the crowd, I would have been in that same boat. But the fact that he goes, guys, there's kids in the audience. This crowd sucks. And then handed the mic to the ref.
I did like how he called the city Philadelphia.
Yeah, I did. I like that too. That was fun. But to me, if he had chastised the crowd a little bit more for being pricks, then I would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. He's continue. But the fact that he just went, guys, there's kids in the crowd, and then he just said, this town sucks, and handed the mic to the ref, kind of made me feel like he was even uncomfortable with it.
Like it was a little bit too intellectual of a comment for Tom Lawlor's character.
Exactly.
If it had been EC3 doing it, then it would have been fine.
Right. But because it was the character that he's got and everything, it just felt like he was uncomfortable with the situation, just like, I'm going to end this interview. If he was smart, what he would have done is he would have extended that interview, and we could have gone past that whole stupid table shot at the end and just done the interview or done the promo an extra minute and a half or something, and just ripped into the crowd for being awful parents and putting their putting children at this kind of disadvantage, just whatever he could have done, freelanced it, done something. But just the way that he did it, it was like, ugh. And then
I don't know what was more distasteful for me, the table shot, the low blow by Rip Von Erich,
or the fact that
the fact that King Mo joined Team Filthy at the end of the show.
The fact that Rip was getting his ass kicked and the other three were like, let's just beat up on the Von Erichs.
Yeah.
You got a member of your team getting destroyed in the ring. Don't you think maybe one of you should dive in and help him out?
Well, I think it was kind of like he was just like the sidekick for the team, really. He's not even one of the team, is the thing.
Well, he joined them because he was a Von Erich. Is literally the role. It was one of those situations, but they did help him out of the ring. It's not like they left him there. Yeah. They did eventually help him out of the ring and help him to the back, and he fought alongside them, to close the show. So it's just the way that they booked these characters is such uncharacteristic of real life that it. Or, of their character development or how they're, portraying. Like, they portrayed poor Rip. He was like the Howard Finkel when Jericho had Finkel following him around. That's kind of how they portrayed Rip. But then at the end, they saved him. I don't think I ever saw Jericho save Howard Finkel. Or, who was the other guy? Or who was the other? Yeah, or Rufus. Yeah, and who was the other guy that Ellsworth in the whole AJ Dean Ambrose feud?
Why did you have to bring him up?
But I'm just saying, it's Rip. Rip is kind of that same character where he's the punching bag, he's the joke, but nobody ever tried to save him. AJ never tried to save him, not once. Ambrose never saved him, not once. But they saved Rip, which made Rip kind of come across as more of an integral part to the unit and not the joke. So then why did you let him get punked the way that he did?
Very true. Wow, you thought really in depth about this match.
It's just those. I'm really into like those really subtle, intricate details. Like when you see a guy get kicked in the shin, to have him grab his shin, 4 or 5 moves later, that's something that's huge. That brings so much more to the match that isn't normally there. And when you see little things like this that just go beyond common sense, it really stands out. And I think had it been done differently, I think they could have told a great story. From start to finish in this match. I think they started in a good way, but then ended it. And then they went another direction and then ended it. And then there was a whole nother direction and then that ended. And then there's another, it was too much start and stop a storyline for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's too bad because we did, like you said, we were such a big fan of this organization, and I really do want to tune in again when they have the empty arena match between MJF and Mance Warner, who leaves MLW, which I'm guessing is going to be MJF. But
Well, I would have done it had there not been that stipulation. That was my problem, because we already know MJF is leaving, so we already know the winner of this match.
so
It just
you don't care about spoilers. So what do you care?
I want some drama though too. I'm sure I'll watch it, but still. All right, I'm done with MLW.
Speaking of drama, obviously I knew, when I watched No Fans Monday last night, that the main event was Bea Priestley taking on her boyfriend, the guy who organized the whole thing, if not the greatest, one of the top 3 wrestlers in the world right now, in Will Ospreay. But you know who I forgot was on the show, Jeff?
Who's that?
The cream in your coffee. Your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler.
I've been looking forward to this.
The physical embodiment of professional wrestling.
Did you write all this
Bernie
down?
Sanders of professional wrestling. The best of the best. Mr. American Rana. Davey Wrestling. The 104-minute man. The main event. He's really good at Twitter. And he's independent. The king of taunts. The product. David Starr.
I love David Starr. He needs to shave that mustache off, but I love David Starr.
He does, doesn't he?
Oh, that's awful. But no, I love.
Is it wrong that the Ospreay and Priestley match was maybe my least favorite match on the entire card?
See, and I really liked that match. I thought my 2 favorites were, actually 3, because I thought there were 3 really solid matches. I thought this David Starr match and Callum Newman was great. I really liked Fletcher and Mills, and I loved the Ospreay Priestley match. I felt like the Ospreay Priestley match maybe went on about 10 minutes too long, but I loved it. I loved what they did with it. I loved the fact that they made that Will didn't treat B like the Impact wrestlers are treating Tessa, even though the announcers tried to sell it like he was treating her with disrespect.
I felt like there was just way too much. I thought they tried to make it too epic between the 2 of them, and I felt like there was like a lot of laying around in that match. They did some great moves. The last 5 minutes was spectacular, but I thought building up to that was just too much. Like, I hit a move, you lay around for 2 minutes. I'll hit a move, you hit a move, I'll lay around for 2 minutes. And I just couldn't get into it because of that reason.
And that's what I'm saying. I felt like the first 10 minutes, it went 10 minutes too long, and the first 10 minutes was dragging. But once B dropped Will on his head on the apron, that's when I felt like it picked up, and I enjoyed every second after that.
You said 10 minutes too long, and I'm thinking, I think between the entrances and then the end of the match, it was it was like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I wasn't counting the entrance. I was talking just, it was I think I want to say it was like a 17, 18 minute match.
Okay, so if it was only 17 or 18 minutes, then I agree with you. I think 12 minutes would have been perfect for that match.
Right.
But I was thinking, like even taking the entrances out, it was probably like 25 minutes, and then it was like half, which means it's 2 times too long.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like the beginning and it's his girlfriend and blah blah. I thought all that stuff in the beginning was awful, but once B dropped him on his head on the apron, every second after that match I was enjoying. I enjoyed every second of that match after he got dropped on his head.
Yeah, and that's fair. But I was already exaggerating. I mean, it definitely wasn't my least favorite match on the card. It's probably more in the middle for me because I loved, like you said, Fletcher against Mills. That match was just fucking awesome.
Right, it really was.
So was David Starr against I can't remember what his opponent's name was.
Callum Newman. And the kid he's only a 17-year-old kid. That dude is a man. I don't care if he's only 17. I would be afraid of that kid.
Yeah, and those guys told a great story.
I love
that 5-way scramble match. And I love the match.
I think my issues with if I had issues with any of it, it would have been that 5-way scramble.
Okay.
I'll get to that in a second. But as the David Starr Callum Newman match was a great story that was told, not just in the ring, but everything that led up to it. The interview in the back, the introduction of David Starr, the heel performance out of David Starr, even though David Starr is one of the biggest baby faces on the globe. But he did a really good job of being that heel character that has disdain for this young kid who's coming in, who he thinks got it all handed to him. I love their the interview in the back, the way that they started the match, leading into it. Just everything about this match I absolutely loved. Everything.
Me too. I really enjoyed the hell out of it. And like you said, like the backstage interview with Starr insisting that the interviewer give him the full announcement that I just read off it. And I swear he's added at least 2 things in there since the last time I heard him announced.
Well, the Independent is new. I know that because he was never known as the Independent before. That's a new thing to it.
The King of Taunts was added in there too. But,
I believe so, because I don't remember that either. But I think my favorite part of his whole interview was when he made him stop, go back, read the line again, and then start up. You missed a line. You missed a line. Go back. No.
Yeah, it's now do the Bernie line again.
Yep.
No, it's not Americana. It's American Rana.
Right.
No, it's spelled right there.
Yeah, I loved his performance in this match, and he's kind of the new Kota Ibushi, since Kota has signed now with New Japan, and he's no longer that independent guy. David Starr has kind of become that new Kota Ibushi, and he's proving every time I see him. And I loved him in Defiant. I loved him in pretty much any promotion I've ever seen the guy in. I absolutely love him, and he did not disappoint again in this one. His persona, everything about him except that mustache, I loved.
Yeah, that mustache was kind of crazy. Really
that was brutal. He needs to shave that off.
Yeah, I actually had texted my wife last night, and I said, David Starr's ring interest is even longer than it used to be. And she's like, who? and the way I explained it to her is he is the most accomplished professional wrestler on the planet that's never been signed to a major promotion. So.
Has he never? I thought he worked with TNA for a little while.
Not that I ever saw.
I'm not going to look it up, but
I could be wrong, but
I could have swore he worked. I mean, he does work for Rev Pro, but that's kind of, I don't know. Would they be considered like the Ring of Honor of England? And they kept calling Rev Pro an independent promotion, but I don't really see them as an independent promotion, because they're kind of the showcase for England.
I feel like, and this is probably wrong considering like the recent results I've looked at for them, the recent cards I've looked at, but for quite a while, like I kind of felt like they were like New Japan's British affiliate, all their champions were signed to New Japan. Either their British heavyweight champion is still signed to New Japan.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think they're independent. I think they're an independent promotion. I mean, they definitely have links to Ring of Honor and New Japan and CMLL, and there might be like the largest independent promotion besides Progress, but I would still say they're an independent promotion.
See, and I've always viewed them as kind of a Ring of Honor type show where they're no longer a independent, but they're not up with the big dogs yet.
I don't even know if there are any actual like major promotions in Britain.
Well, not if Rev Pro's not. Rev Pro and Progress are the 2 biggest, and we know Progress is an independent. And if they pretty much said in this show that Rev Pro is too. So
right, exactly.
My only drawback on this entire show, and I loved it. I'm starting to really enjoy the no crowd feel, because it's allowing me to form my own opinions on the matches. Like I'm not.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I felt like this show did it even better than the other ones we've seen, because there was no chairs out there at all. It didn't, you didn't, wonder, why are the chairs empty, or even think, oh, they look at all the empty chairs, because there were no chairs.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
My only issue, and Ospreay's promo at the end was great. I loved the way he, made fun of his girlfriend but gave her props. I loved his when he kept sticking the mic out to the crowd, and even when he was talking about the crowd, "No, you're awesome, Will. Oh no, you're awesome." I thought all that was fun. But my only issue with this show is more on a social level, and maybe it's because we're watching it 2 weeks after the fact. And now this coronavirus has, become a bigger deal, and it's more. I felt like they made too light of the situations. With Will saying that they're gonna go out and have a beer and cough on each other, and that Chuck Cyrus trying to give everybody hugs, and even Mercedes Blaze putting on her rubber gloves. I felt like they just made too much light of the situation. But then again, too, that was 2 weeks ago, so they didn't have the same kind of information that we do now, and things have gotten so much worse over the last 2 weeks.
I think the other thing you have to consider besides the timing factor is that it's also a show that was made by British professional wrestlers, and they probably assumed that most people watching would be British fans. And because hardly anybody knows who most of these guys are on this show. I mean, you and I know who Kyle Fletcher is, and who Nathan Cruz is, in addition to the big names on here.
But, and Malik and Robinson, and we've been following independent wrestlers, especially a lot of these guys are from Defiant, which we watched for a while. So, we've got kind of our feet in the ground on a lot of these people and a lot of the names that we saw.
And I think there's a lot of the British sense of humor is kind of be self-deprecating and also like poke fun at whatever's going on. So I do think that this was a lot of it was just kind of like the British sense of humor shining through.
Yeah, that's possible.
And I really enjoyed Adam Max. So I mean I'm hoping
I did too.
He looks like he is a 5-tool player.
I really liked him too. I thought him and there was one. Well, Malik I've always liked. He's always been a guy that I've liked, and there was one other guy in that match that stood out. What was his name? That Paul Sayers.
Okay.
I felt like he kind of stood out too. I wasn't a fan of Chuck Cyrus.
No?
No, I just, and I think I was until the ending when he tried to hug everybody. And I felt like he played his big guy monster character greatly, but then he tried to go with that soft side Otis type feel, and it just soured me on him.
Gotcha. I'll tell you who I was not a fan of was Robbie X. And maybe it's just
which is weird because I loved Robbie X in Defiant. I really did, but I got the same feel. I was like, this guy is nothing special. Why do you keep doing that to him?
Yeah, and I think that's probably what a lot of what it was is the announcers were like, wait till you see Robbie X, you're not going to believe your eyes, and he just looked like generic luchador number 14.
Which when he was in Defiant, he was a lot better than generic luchador number 14. So I don't know if it was just the way the match played itself. I don't know if it was because they were trying to put over Cruz and Steele so much. I'm not sure, but this was not the same Robbie X I remember from Defiant.
I don't remember Robbie X from Defiant. I'm not saying I never saw him, but he obviously did stand out to me.
He kind of came on towards the end when you stopped watching right before he really started, and I kept going with it because I was because you gave up on it after that one pay-per-view that kind of went sideways, and they had to change 3 matches on the fly. And I kept watching, and a lot of that's the reason why I like Kyle Fletcher so much. Granted, I like Aussie Open better, but I do like Kyle Fletcher, and I do like Paul Robinson. And a lot of the reason I like El Phantasmo is because I stuck with Defiant and really got to know his character and the stuff that he was capable of. So when I come at you with the El Phantasmo being great stuff, a lot of that's because I've got a little more history with him than you do. And I've seen what this guy's capable of against lesser opponents. Now seeing him do that same thing against bigger opponents and better opponents is even more amazing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would say that this entire show entertained me. But the people that really stood out to me that would be people that now I'm going to go out of my way to watch if I see that they're on a card are Kyle Fletcher, who I already liked as part of Aussie Open, who really astounded me as a singles performer.
Yep.
Connor Mills, who I'd never seen perform, but was just awesome. And then that Adam Max that I really want to kind of follow his career from this point forward.
And of course, David Starr.
Yeah, but I'm saying guys that really like, that shine brighter to me than I'd ever seen him before.
I'm really interested in watching this Callum Newman.
Yeah, that's a good
and seeing
that guy too. Absolutely.
And seeing his career, considering he's only 17, and just I thought you look at a match and you watch guys, and you can tell when AJ Styles is carrying a guy. You could tell when Bret Hart was, or Shawn Michaels, or I never got. And David Starr is unbelievably talented. And he's put on great matches against a lot of top ranked independents, and I've seen him in the ring against Rampage Brown and other guys. He had that match against El Phantasmo that I thought was amazing, and I've seen him do great things in the ring. But I never one time got the feeling that David Starr was carrying Callum Newman. I felt like Callum Newman, as a 17-year-old kid, was standing in there toe-to-toe with him.
Yeah, and that was pretty impressive. Very impressive, actually.
Right. So, I mean...
Because David Starr is, one of the best professional wrestlers on the planet.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a shame that he's one of those guys. And, we kind of talked about this about Kenny Omega and AEW. Anybody who's an American fan, anybody who's a wrestling fan, Japan included, because let's face it, even Japanese wrestling didn't get to see Kenny Omega on a weekly basis. And now you get to see Kenny Omega, a guy who is bar none the best wrestler in the world, and he goes out and proves it time and time again. He's so fluid, he's so good on the mic, he's so good with everything that he does. David Starr is another one of those guys that I feel like could be there at some point. He's a little bit shorter, not as built as Kenny, but he tells great stories in the match. He's got a great personality and a great charisma about him. And his entrance is still one of my favorites with all the introductions. I really wish that David Starr would sign with somebody to get that weekly. Well, okay. Not sign with somebody. Sign with somebody other than WWE, because I don't think they would really know how to push him. But if he could sign with a major promotion that would know how to push him and get the exposure, I think David Starr is a guy that could be talked about as one of the best wrestlers in the world in the next few years. It just
depends how he's used, because like you said, he doesn't have this. He doesn't have the size of guys like Ospreay or Kenny Omega or the other guy I'd put in the top wrestlers on the planet, and people are lucky to get to see on on national television and Ray Phoenix as well.
Right.
But I think David Starr is every bit as talented, just in a different manner.
He's in that Daniel Bryan mold.
He is, absolutely.
Where he's not going to be that guy
or Austin Aries
or CM Punk. He's not going to be that guy that's going to wow you with his size and his flashy moves, but he's going to be that guy that goes out there and gives you this unbelievable performance every single time out. And another guy that, and it's hard to, I guess you can't compare him because, when we talked about innovators last week and the week before and everything, one guy that we didn't put in that was AJ Styles. Look at how many moves in AJ Styles' repertoire are things that nobody else has ever done. Yep. Not only has nobody else ever done them, nobody else is doing them now. He's been doing them for 20 years.
Wasn't it something to see two guys on the show do the spiral tap?
Yeah. Yep. That, and there was somebody else recently that I saw do AJ's forearm. And I can't remember where it was.
Ospreay does it.
No, Ospreay does it, but there was somebody else. I want to say it was Myron Reed on the MLW show we watched.
Yes, I think he did, but he did it differently. He did like a spring. He did like a spring from inside the ring onto the sprung back off with the forearm.
Right. Yeah, but it was so similar to what AJ does that. But if you look at it, did anybody do the Pele kick before AJ?
If not, if they did, it wasn't anywhere nationally that we could see it.
And now you had in this show alone, you had Robbie X do a double Pele. You had, it was. I want to say it was Carlos Romo that did a Pele. But you don't see things like it. Well, and we saw the spinal tap a couple of times, but you don't see. Every now and then you'll see a wrestler break out the Styles Clash. But we talked about innovators of offense and move, with Alex Shelley and I can't think of something. The Mortis, the guy that played Mortis, and not Chris Sabin, but Shane Helms. We talked about those guys being innovators of moves and people that have copied those. Is the reason why most people don't copy AJ's moves is because they're so amazing that you can't copy them?
I've always thought AJ Styles is the greatest dropkick in the history of professional wrestling.
That's tough.
He's got that great suplex neck breaker.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give him that.
He's got the phenomenon, the quebrada into the reverse DDT. And then he's got a move I don't think I've ever seen anybody else do, which is that kind of kip up into the Frankensteiner.
Somebody did that on this show.
I think they did something similar, but I don't think they quite hit it the way that AJ does.
Well, they even mentioned. I remember them saying and bringing AJ Styles' name up in it.
I do too, but it wasn't the same.
Was it Scotty Davis?
I think so. Yeah, it was definitely in that match. So I think it was Davis that did it. Yeah.
Because I remember hearing them say that, and I actually rewound it and watched it. I'm like, that's not AJ's move. Why are you even comparing that?
Exactly.
But they, what else? There's one other thing AJ does too that it's. I was actually thinking about this right before, and I know we're up against the time here and everything, but I was thinking about this right before we went on the air about. We talk about the GOATs. In every, I'd say probably 10 years, a new batch of greatest of all time show up. There was Flair and Hogan, and then there was Bret Hart, and and then Shawn Michaels, and then all of a sudden, here comes Austin and Rock, and these guys. Now I think we're to a time where if we're looking at the greatest of all time, I still have, Flair in my top 5. I still have Shawn Michaels up there, even though I hated his personality. I loved his work. Bret Hart will always be there. But I would have to say probably my 2 GOATs right now are AJ and Chris Jericho.
Yeah, they definitely are for me. And the other thing about AJ with his moves is the moves that he did were perfect for his body style.
Right.
I mean, we watch guys like Ospreay try to do the stuff that AJ does, and it looks good, but it doesn't look great because Ospreay's just too lanky for those moves. It's great that he can do them, and he's so athletic and amazing, but they don't look the same crispness and grace that AJ did them.
And I think a lot of that is because isn't Will about 4 inches taller than AJ too?
Yep.
There's a lot to it, but you can definitely see a lot of AJ Styles and Will Ospreay. A lot of influence there. And it was nice to see Paul Robinson do a Robinson special. I really enjoyed that. That made me really happy. I don't know why, but that made me really happy. But all in all, I thought this.
Made me happy to see B. Priestley do the Chicky Nando's.
Chicky Nando's. Yep, I enjoyed that too. That was fun. I don't know. I thought once she dropped him on his head on the apron and he just stayed there, I think that's when that match really picked up, and I enjoyed everything after that moment.
Yeah, it just took a long time to get there, was my point.
Way too long to get there. But I'll definitely. There are some people I'm going to watch in the future. I've kind of checked out Paul Robinson from here and there. I'm definitely going to watch Adam Maxted going further. I'm going to watch Paul Sayers. I'm going to watch Callum Newman, of course, David Starr, of course, Kyle Fletcher and Connor Mills. Those are guys that I'm really gonna pay attention to, and if I ever get a chance to see them again, I'm definitely gonna do it. And I hope that even if WrestleTalk doesn't put on a show like this again, I really hope that somebody does, because this was enjoyable, and I'm really starting. We're are we 3 weeks into it, or this will be our third week now with the no fans coming up on AEW, and I'm not gonna lie, I am starting to really enjoy it, because I'm enjoying being able to sit down, watch a match, and not disagree with the crowd because of what I see.
That's a very fair point. Um, but I wanted to say before I forget that, you and I talked about when we saw the opening match on, I don't even remember what episode it was, but it definitely a Dynamite when it was Nick Jackson taking on Bray Phoenix. And we said we could watch these. We'd love to see these guys in a best of seven series.
Right.
I feel exactly the same way about Kyle Fletcher versus Connor Mills. I would
Oh,
like to
that
see
would
those.
be amazing.
I'd like to see those guys go out there and just kick each other's ass for a series of matches.
And that was another thing. That match actually felt more real than any of the others. I mean, there was the arrogance of Starr against the fighting spirit of Newman trying to prove himself. There was, the Nathan Cruz thing, but Nathan Cruz is Nathan Cruz no matter where he goes. But there was something about Fletcher and Mills that just, the fact that they were willing to hit each other that hard to open up cuts and stuff with no crowds. God, that was a good match.
It was very good. I loved it. So, all right.
So anyway, guys, I don't know. You have anything else? I guess.
No, I was go. You go ahead.
Guys, I gave all of our current Patreons a month free. We've been dealing with
Thank you guys.
coronavirus and adjusting to working at home and children, and Shane and his wife, and we've been dealing with all this stuff behind the scenes, so we haven't been able to do a Patreon show for a couple of weeks. We haven't done our normal YouTube show for about a month now, so, and I know times are tough for everybody, so I just, as appreciation to our current Patreon listeners, I did give the month of April for free to anybody who's a current Patreon. And I also set it up last week so that if you join after the 10th of the month, you will get the remainder of that month for free. So right now, because I gave the 1 month to everybody, anybody that joins starting now will get the month of April for free just to check it out and see if they like it. Nobody will be charged until May 1st. And then starting on May 1st, anybody that signs up after the 10th of the month will get the remainder of that month for free. It will actually kick in May 1st, June 1st, and so on will be the payment dates for donations to us. But be sure to check it out. It's patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. Lots of free stuff lots of stuff on there, including, hopefully, depending on WrestleMania, and if we can even get it in, we might start that up again next week, but it's probably going to be the week after, because Lord knows WrestleMania is going to be like 14 hours of... And we didn't even talk about that Roman Reigns thing. Also head to our youtube.com, search Kingdom of Honor. All of our shows are now live on there, including one exclusively live monthly show that we're going to do. Hopefully someday we'll get back to doing it twice a month like we've been doing, but right now I'm going to commit to once a month. And then, of course, Twitter, I'm at Regi Co-op, he's at ZanmanLOP, and use hashtag DAD and hashtag KOH for everything.
And like Jeff was saying, next week we're planning on covering WrestleMania. This coming Saturday and Sunday, they're doing a show each night on the WWE Network. It's also available on pay-per-view for conflicting price points, so that's interesting. I don't know if you saw this, Jeff, but apparently there's one price out there for, I think it's I can't think who it is, but that it's like $30 for the first night and $60 for the second night.
Jesus, Mary, Mother of God. Roman Reigns must have been on the first night.
And these are not prices that WWE says. WWE wants it to be one price for the 2 nights, but of course they don't get to make that decision.
So what? It's $90 normally?
No, I think they wanted it to be like $60 combined, like $30 per night. so it just depends on like I can't remember who the cable. It was Comcast. It was Comcast that had it listed as $30 for night one and $60 for night two. So
Shocking that Comcast has issues.
isn't it? And then I think Verizon had two different price points. You could either buy $30 per night, or you could buy $60 for the 2 nights. So yeah, crazy stuff. But anyway, just pay $10 to get to the WWE Network and watch it that way, for goodness sake.
I mean, Jesus Christ, you're investing.
You probably get it for free if you sign up right now.
You're investing 40 some hours into WrestleMania. You might as well get it for $10.
You just went from 14 to 40 something.
All I know is it's going to be a long show.
So anyway, we'll be watching WrestleMania this coming weekend. We'll be talking about it on Tuesday. And, I think it's going to be interesting with the cinematic stuff they're doing. The Boneyard match, the Last Man Standing match, Cena versus Bray Wyatt.
Are they going to do that in a bar?
Maybe. And like Jeff said, Roman Reigns dropped out of WrestleMania. We didn't talk about it at all, but good for him, good for his family. And then Braun Strowman is stepping in there to take on Goldberg, which I would imagine means that Braun Strowman will finally win the world title we should have won 2.5 years ago from goddamn Brock Lesnar. So.
And I did. That was one thing I did want to talk about tonight, but we kind of didn't. But the Roman Reigns dropping out and Matt Riddle stepping up, and them just completely ignoring Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle stepped up and issued the challenge. But I would have rather seen a Matt Riddle against Goldberg than somebody that we've seen fail multiple times.
Bobby Fish when Bobby Fish could fish. Bullshit. All right. Matt Riddle, I have no use for the next, until that bullshit stops. So.
Fair enough. I can't blame. I can't fault you for that. So.
We'll talk to you tomorrow night about AEW Dynamite, and if they talk about the TNT title, we'll probably have some opinions on that. I know I've already got some myself.
Yeah, there's an 8-man tournament coming up for that.
There is.
I literally just saw that.
On Thursday is MCLP Radio Adventure. On Friday, Ms. Fan and Shane have been answering. Shane the Mystic, I should say, not me. Have been answering Miss Fan's mystery mailbag, which is interesting. I haven't listened to these shows yet, but I bet you they're a bunch of damn fun. And then we'll be back with you, like I said, to talk about WrestleMania next Tuesday. That's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
goodbye.
G1 Climax 27. Goodbye and good night.